Welcome to Spotlight. I'm your host, Amitha. Join us weekly to get inspired by guests who'll share their success stories. Words are more powerful than actions because they can take over someone's mind completely. That is why writing is a powerful tool towards change. Our guest today is using this tool as a voice for the masses. He's the author of Keepers of the Faith. Let's welcome to our show Mr. Shaukat Ajmeri. Welcome to Spotlight.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So, we are excited to find more about the book. But first of all, let's give the viewers a brief synopsis about your background and what brought you to Canada.
So I was born in Udaipur, Rajasthan, in India, and uh, my early schooling was done in Udaipur, and then I moved to Bombay. At that time, it was Bombay, and the rest of the schooling and the college was done there. And right from the beginning, from an early childhood, I was interested in reading and writing, and uh, the stories really sort of opened up a new world to me. And interestingly enough, children in those days used to read English classics like Enid Blyton and Thomas Hardy, but somehow I never felt attached to them. They seemed all alien because of the characters and the setting. Uh, but strangely enough, when I read the English classics like Charles Dickens and Jane Austen and Thomas Hardy and all that, that alienation, that sense of alienation was not there. And it seems strange to me, but now that I think about it, and but what got me really inspired about writing or about the power of the words was the books by Gabriel Garcia Marquez and Salman Rushdie. The magical realism
Mhm.
of their books, and then it suddenly hit me the power of the words and how the words can conjure up different realms and different magical worlds. And and ever since I had this sort of feeling, a desire in me to do something similar, but maybe unconsciously it was there for a long time and I didn't do much about it. And the other thing was I always wanted to write. So journalism seemed to be the course for me to get published, because coming from a small town, maybe our ambitions were limited. And thought I never thought of writing a book at that time in teenage years, but I thought journalism was the only avenue left for people like us. And so I aspired to be a journalist, and I became one. And that's how that got on. I got on to the path of writing and reading, and
Amazing.
and
So it was an interest that was always there, but not everybody follows that interest and that passion to actually executing it and taking it on as a career
Mhm.
path. So that's amazing. What brought you to Canada?
So I was working in Dubai for a long time in the newspaper Gulf News, and at a certain point, I got tired of the life there, of the job there, and the children were growing up. So I have two boys, and they needed to be sent out to college, because at that time there were no colleges there, and they were still in mid school. So I mean, still very young, 10 years and 12 years, and we thought for their future we need to uh, either we need to go back to India or somewhere else. And a lot of our friends had been coming here at that time, and they said, why don't you come over and try it? And I was against the idea first, and they said, at least create an opportunity for yourself and see how it goes. So, and that's how we took the plunge, and we came here 20 years ago.
Well, we are glad that you're here and you are, creating change with what you're writing. It sounds like growing up, you had a lot of inspirational role models and writers. Probably fantasy fiction was not your cup of tea, but you found something with that kind of fiction or reality writing that can connect with uh, the real person and with the masses. And it's amazing that now you're using it as a tool for change, as I mentioned earlier. So now tell us what exactly inspired Keepers of the Faith, which is your book?
Uh, I don't know whether there's one particular thing which inspired it, but as I said, this urge to write was always there, and I had been not consciously nursing it as such, but some 10 years ago or something, I said, okay, I have to do this, and but still, I didn't actively sort of started doing anything, practical that would lead me to write this. But at some point, I realized that the book is not going to write itself. I have to sit down and start writing, and that's and when I started writing it, I was not sure that I was writing about this particular subject or this topic. I had no idea. I just started with a scene which was sort of autobiographical from my early childhood, which unfortunately never made it into the final draft. So just a small part of it, though. And so, yeah, I just started writing, and then just the story developed from there, and the characters developed, and it just went on. I mean, I had no framework when I started. I had no story, no characters. That how this is going to end. So, and it's just such a mystery that the writing is such a mystery, such a process that nobody can put a finger on it and say, okay, this is how you should do it.
Well, this is coming from a writer. Now we know better, because sometimes we assume, okay, all the books that come out, that make an impact, the writers already know it from the start. But this is interesting to know. It probably started with a brainstorming session, and it eventually led to this final great product, Keepers of the Faith. So when you were writing, we'll get to the content of the book in a minute, but when you were
Mm-hmm.
writing, what were some of the challenges?
Yeah, I started writing. First of all, I had been writing a lot of other non-fiction stuff, articles and features, and that sort of thing. I had written a couple of short stories as fiction, but I had no experience in writing a full-length, novel as such. And so I started writing a few scenes, and then I said, I have to understand the mechanics of writing a novel. What.
So I love that aspect of self-help, and it's not that if somebody tells you it's not possible just because you didn't grow up with it completely or trained completely in it. I love the fact that you still went after it, and it's because you really wanted to do it, and now you have achieved it. And we have a great book, Keepers of the Faith. So we're going to find out more, but before that, it's time for a short break. Welcome back to Spotlight. We are talking to author Shaukat Ajmeri. So, love how your journey unfolded all the way from India to Canada, and in between, as you mentioned, the Arab Emirates too. Now, tell us exactly what Keepers of the Faith is all about. What is the actual content of the book?
Okay, yeah, without revealing too much, what I can say, the plot wise, this is a love story at the very core of it, and which takes place within a small community which is sort of disturbed or sort of by religious strife that takes place at one point in the history of that community. And because of it, the community is basically the Dawoodi Bohras, in India. They're in India and Pakistan and East Africa, and now the diaspora is all over the world, in fact. So what happened was some of the events, actually, the trigger is based on real life events. So when I was very young, this dissension, this rebellion took place in Udaipur against the priesthood, which was very dictatorial, very autocratic, and they imposed their rules and their will on the people, and uh, the, the actual incident was that uh, people wanted to stand up for municipal election. This group, And the priesthood said that you need our permission to do that. And the people refused, and that's how this rebellion started. And from that, the priesthood was very angry because of that, and they excommunicated the rebels. And there were a lot, so many families involved in this. Almost 50 or 60% of the community was sort of socially boycotted, and that led to a lot of heartache and suffering. And because every family was affected, the social boycott or excommunication means that uh, father cannot talk to his son, or the wife cannot talk to his husband, and you're not allowed uh, to have normal relationship or meet people outside the house, or even within every home there was a split, there was a schism. So so this was the trigger, and this love story takes place within this sort of context of religious strife, and these two lovers are uh, uh, they're teenage, they're very young, and they are very passionate about each other. But when this happens, the families are on opposite sides of this schism, and that's how the story progresses. Uh, and the book also talks about the religious background of what has happened, the history, uh, and but mostly it is about these two characters and their families, and and they go different, they're separate ways, and what happens later is actually, if you read the book, you will sort of enjoy.
Well, yeah, we don't want to reveal all of it here
Mm,
because we wanted to leave it to the imagination of our viewers who have to read the book as
mm,
well.
mm,
But that's such an interesting topic, and I would say such a relevant topic in this day and age, because you could use it as an analogy as how there is a pricing against people in authority. People do question that and question authority and not just take it for what it is, because sometimes authority is handed down generations and we just kind of go with the flow when sometimes it's not actually right. So it's I would say such a relevant topic for these days as well. And what can readers expect from it?
so that's a very good point. It is very relevant, and the themes that I cover in the book are very universal. So it is just challenging the authority, and from an early age, I have been sort of skeptical about all authoritarian sort of people and institutions. And religious institution like this is very much have, is in the news now. How the gurus and now the political sort of leaders as well, their authoritarian uh, values have affected people. Their uh, the regimes, like in India itself, or now we are seeing what we are seeing in the US with Trump. So there has been a challenge, and what people can expect is that you should never take it lying down. You should fight for justice, and this is what the characters in the books do. Some of them very loyal to the priesthood. So there's always this conflict of right and wrong, and what is good and what is bad. So yeah. So
Yes.
and
So
of
yeah,
course, sorry,
go ahead.
of course, the people will take away from the book, you know, in their own light, and with their own sort of understanding of, because everyone can write a book, but the reader can interpret it in so many ways. And you just can't predict what will they take away from the book.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking too. In terms of reading something, that's what so great about it. Depending on how the author presents it, the reader can use it to their advantage based on what their life is all about. So
Mhm.
that's why, like we were talking about, how this topic's so relevant for these days, even though your storyline might be different, but the whole gist of it being something that's so relevant to today and what people can relate to. So it's quite exciting that the viewers get to read this. Where can they buy a book?
It is available in all the independent bookstores. It is available on Amazon. It is available on bookshop.org.
Oh,
And
here,
just wanted to show this is the book, Keepers of the Faith.
nice. Nice. Thank you. There you go, viewers. You get a preview of what it looks like. You also got a preview of what you can expect from it, but we have left the rest to your imagination. So go get the book. We have more to talk about with author Shaukat Ajmeri, but it's time for a short break. Welcome back to Spotlight. We are talking to author Shaukat Ajmeri. So this is great. Now our viewers know where to find Keepers of the Faith. Now I'm going to digress for a bit. I'm aware that you are part of a book club, Book That Binds. Tell us a little bit more, because in this day and age, people are more about screen time and less about reading. When in fact, we just heard how reading can open a whole lot of possibilities of a locked human mind.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, Books That Bind mm, is a book club, of very lively and very avid readers in this saga here. And I'm part of this, though I'm not very actively involved because uh, somehow I was the only male left in the group there. But it is they read all diverse kind of books, and they discuss it monthly, and it's uh, and they are going to launch. They are going to actually uh, uh, conduct a book event for Keepers of the Faith this coming Sunday. So I'm looking forward to that as well. And as for reading, of course, the first, there was television, and now these we have mobile, small screens, which is sort of monopolizing people's attention and minds. And it is really important in this day and age that we keep reading books, even digitally, if that is okay. But the physical books, there's nothing like that to read, to hold a physical book and read it. And of course, it opens up uh, different worlds to you, and uh, movies and shows create scenes for you to just consume. But reading is very inventive. It is very creative for the reader itself. You imagine the scenes in your mind, and it opens up uh, endless possibilities, and it creates empathy for characters and situations and things that you are not part of it, which is not part of your experience. So reading is very important in this in our times, especially in the times of COVID, where there's people have so much time now, and all the essentials. We are reduced to doing all of our essentials, and book reading is, I think, part of it. So I would advise that people watch less of television, less of shows, and read more books,
Very well
including
said.
including Keepers of the Faith.
Very well said. Yes, it's so interesting. Like when you are, like you said, watching a movie, film, whatever it may be on screen, you're pretty much, for lack of better terms, like a zombie. You're not thinking for yourself, and you're kind of going with what the director is portraying for you. Whereas, like you said, when you read, there's such a beautiful opportunity for you to be able to interpret it in your way, which means you do put your mind to use and fire those neurons, and that's so
Mm-hmm.
stimulating for the human brain, and so important in this day and age, especially during this pandemic, where we do need to keep our brains active to stay
Exactly.
physically and mentally healthy. So of course, viewers, take up more of reading and go after Keepers of the Faith, because it is also a topic of relevance to this day and age. Now I have to ask you, you for yourself. Writing is such a wonderful tool to be able to, like we just said, stay healthy. But what do you do outside writing?
Yeah, so when I came to Canada, I had only journalism background. I knew nothing else except that, when I was in that role, I also was editing, not just writing, but editing and also designing, layouts and covers for magazines and newspapers. So when the internet came along, I wanted to design websites, and I learned that because the, the design principles are the same, only the technology had changed. So before I came here, I had learned to design websites. And at the time when we came here, in 2000s, early 2000, there was a lot of demand for web professionals. So I got the job as a web designer, and today I work for Canadian Institute for Health Information as a UX designer, that is user experience designer. So yeah, that's my day job. But in all my spare time, when I'm not doing anything else, I'm writing or reading.
Amazing. So you're using your mind to the full potential, and which is great, which is what
Yeah.
I think all of us need to do. So you're leading by example. So I have to ask you if you have a few tips for our viewers who are aspiring writers and want to be like you someday.
Oh, the only I mean, yeah, you should, if you want to write, you have to write. You don't wait for an inspiration. You see, the biggest block that I had, mental block that I had when before I started writing, is that if you have to write, then you have to write something very spectacular, the novel of the century or something like that. Just write what you tell your story, and don't wait for any inspiration. There's no inspiration as such. Just sit down and get started. Just keep writing and tell your story in whatever way you want. Find your voice and do it. And don't think of writing the best novel or the best story ever. That you can't do that. You just have to find your voice and just start writing.
Very
So
well
yeah, that's
said.
the advice. Yeah.
Very well said. So find the inspiration from within, and then eventually what's around you will inspire you, and don't be afraid to go after it.
Yeah.
Thank you
And
very
don't give
much.
up.
Don't
And
give
don't give
up.
up. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Shaukat Ajmeri, for talking to us today. Congratulations once again on Keepers of the Faith. And now our viewers know where to find it. We wish you all the best with this book and with all the upcoming projects. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Well, that was Mr. Shaukat Ajmeri, who has inspired us today to find the writer within. Well, that's a wrap for this week's show. Continue to follow us on Facebook and Twitter and write to us at spotlight@ethnicchannels.com. Until next week, this is Amita signing off, encouraging you to find the inspiration within.